History has a dark secret. While textbooks celebrate the same familiar names, brilliant black pioneers changed the world in shadowy silence, then vanished from memory as if they never existed. One saved a president's life, but died forgotten in an unmarked grave. Another's invention powers every home, yet his name appears nowhere in your textbooks. Their erasure wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, systematic, calculated. Today, the truth breaks free. Today, we expose the conspiracy of silence that buried these heroes. If you're ready to learn what they never wanted you to know, smash that like button right now. Subscribe and hit the bell, because this story will shatter everything you thought you knew about history. The history books sitting in classrooms across America tell a carefully curated story. They speak of inventors and heroes, pioneers and legends. But they're incomplete. No, they're worse than incomplete. They're deliberately edited. For over a century, thousands of black innovators, warriors, healers, and geniuses were systematically removed from the historical record. Their achievements were stolen, their names erased, their legacies buried beneath layers of revisionist propaganda. This wasn't an oversight. This was policy. Tonight, 5 extraordinary souls step back into the light. 5 people who should be household names, whose stories should inspire generations, whose accomplishments rival anyone in the history books. A lawman who arrested over 3,000 criminals and became the blueprint for America's most famous fictional hero. An inventor whose genius actually made the light bulb work while someone else took the credit. A nurse who rode into active battlefields to save dying soldiers, then watched history crown someone else. A surgeon who performed the impossible when the world said black people couldn't even practice medicine. And a king who stood alone against European empires and won, saving an entire nation from colonial chains. Their stories aren't just inspiring, they're essential. They reveal uncomfortable truths about how history gets written and who gets remembered. So settle in, because the next 23 minutes will change everything. This is the history they never taught you. This is the truth they tried to bury. The year is 1838 in Crawford County, Arkansas. A child is born into the brutality of slavery, owned by a man named William Reeves. That child's name is Bass Reeves, and he would grow up to become the most legendary lawman the American West ever produced. But you've probably never heard of him. Instead, you know the Lone Ranger, a fictional character who wears a mask, rides a magnificent horse, and brings justice to the lawless frontier. That character was based on Bass Reeves. Except Hollywood made one crucial change. They made him white. Bass Reeves lived in a world designed to crush him. Enslaved in Arkansas, he learned to shoot, ride, and survive in the harshest conditions. During the Civil War, everything changed. His enslaver took him to battle as a servant, but Bass wasn't built for servitude. After beating his enslaver in a dispute, a crime that would have meant death, Bass fled into Indian Territory, living among the Creek and Seminole tribes. He learned their languages, their customs, their ways of tracking and surviving. For years, he lived as a fugitive, honing skills that would later make him legendary. When the war ended and slavery collapsed, Bass emerged transformed. In 1875, Judge Isaac Parker was appointed to bring law to Indian Territory. 75,000 square miles of lawless chaos where outlaws fled to escape justice. Parker needed men who were tough, fearless, and willing to risk everything. He made Bass Reeves one of the first black deputy U.S. Marshals west of the Mississippi River. It was a death sentence job. Most marshals didn't survive long. Bass Reeves would serve for 32 years. The stories of his exploits sound like fiction, but they're documented fact. Bass was ambidextrous, able to shoot accurately with both hands. He stood 6 feet 2 inches tall, an imposing figure who could outride, outshoot, and outwit the most dangerous criminals in the territory. He spoke Creek, Seminole, and Cherokee fluently. moving through native communities with respect and ease. He was a master of disguise, once dressing as a homeless drifter to get close to two murderers who had sworn to kill him on sight. They welcomed the old beggar to their campfire. Bass arrested them both before they realized who he was. Over his career, Bass Reeves arrested more than 3,000 felons and killed 14 men in self-defense. He was never wounded, despite countless gunfights. He walked into outlaw camps alone, tracking criminals through impossible terrain, bringing them back to face justice. Outlaws feared him. His reputation grew so large that criminals would surrender rather than face him. But the most heartbreaking moment of Bass Reeves' career reveals the kind of man he truly was. In 1902, his own son, Benjamin, was charged with murdering his wife. As a deputy marshal, Bass was assigned to bring him in. Imagine that impossible choice. Your duty as a lawman versus your love as a father. Bass Reeves didn't hesitate. He arrested his own son and delivered him to justice. Benjamin was convicted and sent to prison. Bass never spoke publicly about it, but those who knew him said it broke something inside him. Bass Reeves retired in 1907 and worked as a police officer in Muskogee, Oklahoma, until his health failed. He died in 1910 at age 71 from Bright's disease. He was buried in Muskogee, and for decades his grave went unmarked. The man who defined frontier justice, who became the template for the Lone Ranger, died in poverty and was forgotten. Hollywood took his story, stripped away his identity, and gave it to a white actor in a mask. For a century, children played Lone Ranger, without knowing they were playing Bass Reeves. The injustice is staggering. Bass should be remembered alongside Wyatt Earp and Wild Bill Hickok, except his accomplishments eclipse theirs. He should have monuments, movies, textbooks filled with his exploits. Instead, his story was stolen, whitewashed, and sold back to America as fiction. But Bass Reeves was real. And now you know his name. But Bass Reeves wasn't the only genius they tried to bury. While one man brought light to justice, another literally brought light to the world. His name was Lewis Howard Latimer, and every time you flip a light switch, you owe him. Yet Thomas Edison gets all the glory. Lewis Latimer was born in 1848 in Chelsea, Massachusetts. His parents, George and Rebecca Latimer, were escaped slaves who fled Virginia and fought a legal battle that helped galvanize the abolitionist movement. Lewis grew up free but poor, joining the Union Navy at 15, lying about his age to serve his country. After the war, he found work as an office boy at a patent law firm, earning just $3 a week. Most people would have stayed there forever. Lewis Latimer taught himself mechanical drawing by watching the engineers, practicing at night until his hands mastered the precise technical illustrations required for patent applications. His talent was undeniable. Within a few years, he became the firm's head draftsman. In 1876, a man named Alexander Graham Bell rushed into the office with a revolutionary invention: the telephone. He needed patent drawings immediately, before competitors could file first. Lewis Latimer worked late into the night, creating the technical illustrations that would secure Bell's telephone patent. That patent changed human communication forever, and it exists because of Latimer's skill. But Latimer's greatest contribution came through his work with the incandescent light bulb. Thomas Edison is credited with inventing it. And in fairness, Edison did create a working bulb. The problem was it barely worked. Edison's early bulbs burned out in just a few hours, sometimes mere minutes. They were expensive, fragile, and impractical. The technology was revolutionary in theory, but useless in practice. The world needed someone to solve the problem. That someone was Lewis Latimer. In 1881, Latimer began working for the U.S. Electric Lighting Company, a competitor to Edison. He focused on the filament, the tiny wire inside the bulb that glows when electricity passes through it. Edison used carbonized bamboo, which burned too quickly. Latimer experimented obsessively, testing different materials and manufacturing processes. Finally, he discovered it. A carbon filament that lasted exponentially longer, months instead of hours. He patented his process in 1882, and suddenly electric lighting became practical and affordable. Latimer's innovation changed everything. He supervised the installation of electric lighting systems across New York City, Philadelphia, Montreal, and London. He worked directly for companies installing this new technology, traveling constantly, teaching others how to implement his designs. He even wrote the first book on electric lighting, Incandescent Electric Lighting, a practical description of the Edison system, which became the standard reference for electricians. Eventually, even Edison recognized Latimer's genius. When Edison consolidated various companies into General Electric, he hired Latimer for his elite engineering team, known as the Edison Pioneers. Latimer was the only black member of this prestigious group. He worked alongside Edison for years, drafting patents and solving technical problems. His expertise went beyond lighting. He held patents for improved railroad car bathrooms, a forerunner to air conditioning, and various other innovations. Despite his monumental contributions, Louis Latimer died in 1928 without widespread recognition. While Edison became immortalized as the inventor of the light bulb, Latimer's name appeared only in footnotes, if at all. Textbooks celebrated Edison while ignoring the black engineer who actually made the technology work. It's a perfect example of how history gets rewritten. The person who solves the problem gets erased, while the wealthy businessman takes the credit. Every electric light in your home, every office building, every street lamp, they all trace back to Louis Latimer's carbon filament innovation. His genius illuminated the modern world, but they never taught you his name, until now. While Latimer was illuminating the world, another hero was saving lives on blood-soaked battlefields halfway across the globe. Her name was Mary Seacole, and she fought disease, racism, and war simultaneously. History tried to erase her too. Mary Jane Grant was born in 1805 in Kingston, Jamaica, to a Scottish father and a free black Jamaican mother who practiced traditional medicine. Young Mary learned healing arts from her mother, combining Caribbean herbal remedies with European medical knowledge. She traveled extensively, running boarding houses and treating patients throughout the Caribbean and Central America. She had an adventurous spirit, a sharp business mind, and an unshakable determination to help the sick. In 1850, cholera swept through Panama. While others fled, Mary Seacole rushed toward the epidemic, treating victims with a combination of traditional remedies and careful nursing. She saved countless lives, earning a reputation as a skilled healer. But her greatest test came in 1854 when Britain entered the Crimean War. Florence Nightingale was organizing a nursing corps to care for British soldiers dying from disease and poor medical care in Crimea. Mary Seacole, a loyal British subject despite the Empire's racism, immediately applied to join. She was supremely qualified, more experienced than most nurses Nightingale recruited. But Seacole was rejected. The War Office gave various excuses, but the reason was clear. She was black. They rejected her multiple times. Most people would have given up. Mary Seacole funded her own journey to Crimea. She spent her life savings to travel to the war zone, determined to help whether the British government wanted her or not. Near the battlefield, she established the British Hotel, a combination of lodging, restaurant, and medical facility where she treated wounded and sick soldiers. Here's where Mary Seacole became legendary. While Florence Nightingale worked in hospitals miles behind the lines, important work, certainly, Mary Seacole rode directly onto battlefields while fighting raged. She carried medical supplies in a carpet bag, treating wounded soldiers under fire, regardless of which side they fought for. British, French, Russian, Turkish, she treated them all. Soldiers called her Mother Seacole, and many loved her more than Nightingale. She was there in the trenches, in the smoke and blood, saving lives while bullets flew. When the war ended in 1856, Mary Seacole returned to England, bankrupt. She had spent everything helping soldiers, and they celebrated her briefly with benefits and fundraisers. But as years passed, she faded from public memory while Florence Nightingale became immortalized as the Lady with the Lamp. Nightingale was important, yes, but she worked in relatively safe hospitals. Seacole risked everything on active battlefields, showing more courage and taking greater risks. Yet history chose to remember the white nurse, and forget the black one. Only recently has Britain begun acknowledging Mary Seacole's contributions. In 2004, she was voted the greatest Black Briton. In 2016, a statue of her was unveiled outside St. Thomas Hospital in London, the first statue of a named black woman in the UK. But for over a century, she was erased, her extraordinary courage buried beneath deliberate historical amnesia. Mary Seacole died in 1881 in London. She risked everything for soldiers who couldn't save her from obscurity. But her story survives, and now you carry it forward from the battlefield to the operating room. Another pioneer was fighting an even harder battle against the racism that said black people couldn't even be doctors, let alone surgeons. His name was Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, and in 1893 he performed a medical miracle that should have made him immortal. Daniel Hale Williams was born in 1856 in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. After his father died, young Daniel worked as a barber and musician to support himself. He apprenticed under a local doctor, studying medicine while cutting hair. This was the only path available. Most medical schools refused black applicants. But Williams was brilliant and determined. He eventually gained admission to Chicago Medical College, graduating in 1883. Dr. Williams opened a practice in Chicago, but he saw a larger problem. Black people received inferior medical care, and black women had almost no opportunity to become nurses. In 1891, Williams founded Provident Hospital, the first interracial hospital in America, where black doctors could practice, and black women could train as nurses. It was revolutionary, a place where competence mattered more than color. Then came July 9th, 1893. A man named James Cornish arrived at Provident Hospital with a knife wound near his heart. He was dying. In that era, there were no X-rays, no antibiotics, no blood transfusions, no intensive care units. Opening someone's chest was considered a death sentence. Infection would kill them, even if the surgery didn't. Most doctors refused to even try. They said chest surgery was impossible. Dr. S. William Williams examined Cornish and faced an impossible decision. Do nothing, and the patient dies. Operate, and the patient probably dies anyway, but there's a chance. Williams decided to try. He assembled a team and opened Cornish's chest without any of the technology modern surgeons rely on. He found the pericardium, the sac surrounding the heart, torn by the knife. Working with primitive instruments, Williams carefully sutured the pericardium without damaging the heart itself. One wrong move would kill Cornish instantly. The surgery succeeded. James Cornish recovered and lived for 20 more years. Dr. Daniel Hale Williams had just performed the first successful open-heart surgery in history. It was a medical miracle, a breakthrough that should have made headlines worldwide. Some newspapers did cover it, but the medical establishment was skeptical. Some white doctors claimed it never happened or tried to diminish Williams' achievement. They couldn't accept that a black surgeon had accomplished what white doctors said was impossible. Dr. Williams continued his extraordinary career. He went on to found over 40 hospitals and training schools for black medical professionals. He became the first black surgeon to be accepted into the American College of Surgeons. He trained hundreds of black doctors and nurses, creating opportunities where none existed. He performed countless surgeries, saved innumerable lives, and proved beyond any doubt that black excellence in medicine wasn't just possible. It was superior to those who claimed superiority. Daniel Hale Williams died in 1931 from a stroke. Despite his groundbreaking surgery and lifetime of achievement, many medical textbooks still don't mention him. When they do, it's often a footnote. The first successful heart surgery should be taught in every medical school, celebrated in every history class. Instead, Williams remains largely unknown outside of medical history circles. He proved that black excellence could literally save lives. He opened doors that racism had welded shut. He showed the world what was possible when talent and determination overcame prejudice. But they still wouldn't write his name in the books. Until now. Now you know, now you can tell others. While Dr. Williams was saving lives in America, across the Atlantic Ocean, an African king was saving his entire nation from European colonization. His name was Menelik II, and he accomplished something nearly impossible. He defeated a European empire at the height of imperialism and kept his country free. Menelik was born in 1844 in Ethiopia, then called Abyssinia. The late 1800s was the era of the scramble for Africa, when European powers carved up the entire African continent like a pie at the Berlin Conference. By 1890, nearly all of Africa was colonized. Britain controlled vast territories. France claimed huge swaths. Germany, Belgium, Portugal, they all grabbed pieces. Ethiopia was one of the last independent African nations, and Italy wanted it desperately. Italy had already colonized Eritrea, Ethiopia's northern neighbor, and saw Ethiopia as the next prize. In 1889, Italy and Ethiopia signed the Treaty of Wuchale, which was supposed to establish peaceful relations. But Italy engaged in deliberate deception. The treaty was written in two languages, Amharic and Italian. The Italian version claimed Ethiopia was now an Italian protectorate, essentially a colony. The Amharic version said nothing of the sort. Italy planned to use the false treaty to justify colonization. When Menelik discovered the deception, he was furious. He rejected the Italian version and declared the treaty void. Italy refused to back down, preparing for war. European powers assumed Italy would easily conquer Ethiopia, just as they had conquered dozens of other African kingdoms. They were wrong. Menelik II was a brilliant strategist and modernizer. Unlike some African leaders who faced Europeans with outdated weapons, Menelik had spent years acquiring modern rifles and artillery from Europe, playing European powers against each other to arm his nation. He strengthened his military, trained his troops, and unified various Ethiopian factions against the common threat. When war came, he was ready. The Battle of Adwa commenced on March 1st, 1896. Italy brought 17,000 soldiers equipped with modern weapons and artillery. They faced approximately 100,000 Ethiopian troops. The Italians assumed their superior technology and European tactics would guarantee victory. They were spectacularly wrong. Menelik's forces surrounded the Italian army and crushed them completely. Ethiopian soldiers fought with incredible bravery. Men, women, farmers, nobles all united in defense of their homeland. The battle was decisive and devastating. Italy lost nearly half its force, killed, wounded, or captured. It was the first time an African nation had defeated a European colonial power in the modern era, and the victory shocked the world. Italy was humiliated. They were forced to sign the Treaty of Addis Ababa, recognizing Ethiopian sovereignty and independence. While the rest of Africa fell under colonial rule, Ethiopia remained free. Menelik's victory inspired colonized people worldwide, proving that European imperialism wasn't invincible. It was a beacon of hope and a symbol of African resistance. Yet Western history books barely mention this battle. The humiliating defeat of European colonialism doesn't fit the narrative of inevitable European dominance. Menelik's tactical genius is ignored. His ability to modernize and unite his country is overlooked. The incredible courage of Ethiopian soldiers fighting for their freedom is forgotten. King Menelik II died in 1913, leaving behind an independent Ethiopia that would not fall to colonization until Mussolini's brutal invasion in 1935, and even then, Ethiopia would regain independence just 5 years later. Menelik saved a nation and inspired a continent. But your textbook probably skipped this chapter. 5 heroes. 5 different fields. 5 extraordinary stories that should be taught in every school. And 5 deliberate erasures. This wasn't accidental. These weren't oversights or coincidences. This was systematic removal of black excellence from the historical record, especially intensifying after Reconstruction, when white America wanted to reassert racial hierarchies. These stories challenged the racist narrative of black inferiority. Bass Reeves proved black men could embody justice and heroism. Lewis Latimer demonstrated black genius could advance technology. Mary C. Cole showed black courage under fire. Dr. Williams revealed black medical excellence. King Menelik II displayed black leadership defeating European imperialism. Each one shattered the lies that justified segregation, discrimination, and oppression, so they were erased. Deliberately, systematically. Their stories were removed from textbooks, their achievements attributed to others, their names buried under layers of revisionist history. Because they couldn't let you know that black people were this exceptional. It broke their entire story. It demolished the justifications for racism. It proved that the only thing holding black people back was racism itself, not any inherent limitation. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. These 5 changed the world. Now imagine the hundreds more we still don't know about. The scientists, inventors, warriors, healers, artists, and leaders whose stories were stolen from history. They existed. They achieved greatness. They were deliberately forgotten. History isn't set in stone. It's written by those in power, and they write what serves them. But now you know these names. Now you carry their stories. Now you can share their truth. Hit that like button if these heroes deserved better. Subscribe because we're uncovering more hidden history every week. Comment which hero shocked you most, or tell us about another forgotten pioneer you've discovered. Share this video. These names belong in every history book, but until then, we're the textbook. The truth was buried. We just dug it up, and we're not stopping.